Welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. When you're ready to transform your sales for today's transforming market, we've got you covered with your host, the queen of cold calling and founder of Salesology, award-winning author, speaker, sales trainer, and coach, Wendy Weiss.
Hi, welcome to Salesology, conversations with sales leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. And I'm your host, Wendy Weiss. I'm the founder of Salesology and creator of the Salesology prospecting method. I'm also known as the queen of cold calling. Today, our very special guest is Keith Hall, and Keith is the president and CEO of the National Association for the Self-Employed. And Keith has very interesting background. He was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. He graduated from the University of Texas at Austin in 1981, and he began his career with the public accounting firm of KPMG, and he has worked with and on behalf of the National Association for the Self-Employed, that's NASE, since 1991. And of his many duties with NASE, his passion remains answering tax and financial questions every day directly from NASE members via Ask the Experts. So welcome, Keith.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you. And I know there's a story there. I want to know, how did you go? I want the backstory. How did you go from accounting, from KPMG to NASE? What's the story?
Well, it's a good question. The first thing I'd like to point out, you mentioned I graduated from University of Texas in 1981. I want to make sure everyone knows I was really, really young at that time. I was born at a very early age. So nobody judge me on the date I graduated from college. Yeah, I was I'm an accountant by trade. I did a lot of tax work, a lot of audit work in those early years. One of our clients was the National Association for the Self-Employed. And back then, as they do today, they help small business owners be more successful. I was intrigued with how they did that. I became more and more involved. I served on their board of directors as a consultant. I then became involved in the day-to-day activities as part of that Ask the Experts thing that you mentioned, which is a program the NASE provides experts like general business types, attorneys for contracts, taxes like me, IT people, real estate people. If a small business owner has a question, the NASE has an expert to help them through that process. So I started answering tax questions from NASE members all the way back in 1991. And being involved one-on-one, many self-employees, I think one of the commonalities of the self-employed entrepreneurial spirit is they like to be in charge. They do everything. That's good and bad because they are the CEO, they're the CFO, they're the chief marketing officer, but they also have to clean up the kitchen at night. So having someone that they can call on, that they can trust, that knows a little bit about their business is satisfying for them. And it's very satisfying for me personally to be able to help them with those questions. Just one more answer, one more question, one more step closer to the success they want to enjoy for themselves and their families.
Hey, so I did a little Googling in preparation for our conversation today, and I found out that 10.1% of the workforce is currently self-employed. This is a number as of January of 2023. So that's almost 16.2 million people. And that includes, I gather the definition of self-employed includes both incorporated businesses, 6.56 million, and unincorporated businesses, 9.635 million. So that's a whole lot of people and a whole lot of businesses.
It is indeed. And you mentioned different forms of organization. A C corporation, S corporation, LLCs. Most of our listeners have heard about those things. Many self-employed people just file a Schedule C which is the easiest form from a tax standpoint to be self-employed. So there are many of those. Let me put this in a little bit perspective to tell you how big of a number this is that every year the IRS processes about 150 million tax returns. That's a lot of tax returns, a lot of paper pushing around. But of those 150 million tax returns, about 30 million, so that's 1 in 5, about 30 million tax returns includes a Schedule C. So 1 in 5 of every household that you see, you go to your PTA meetings, go to school, go to the grocery store, 1 out of 5 people that you see has some type of small business. And we've learned through COVID, and I hope we'll talk about this a little more in a minute, but we learned through COVID, through technology increases, that number has steadily grown over the last 5 years. And all indications are that's going to continue to grow. So however you define it, however you look at the numbers, self-employment, small business is a very, very big part of the U.S. economy.
Absolutely. So yeah, why don't we dive right into it? What has changed about being self-employed in the past 5 years or so, and also what's changed before and after COVID, the big elephant in the room?
It is the big elephant, and I certainly don't want to make light of COVID. Our country will never be the same. Our culture will never be the same. We'll probably never recover from the losses we had from COVID at a personal level. Many people lost much more than just a job, so I don't want to make light of that. But one silver lining of the experience we all shared that was called COVID or the pandemic was this move back home, this move back to concentrating on your life balance, if you will. And that sounds all airy-fairy. But many people through COVID went home, not because they chose to, but because the place they worked chose for them to go home. Many people began working from home, doing the same thing they were already doing, and that worked great for many companies. Some companies did not survive, so people lost their jobs. So literally millions of people were at home trying to figure out how to generate income to earn a living to support themselves and their family. They created new technologies. They increased the utilization of existing technologies. The increase in that usage put people in a position like never before of knowing that they could indeed work from home. And again, many of those people were doing exactly the same thing they were doing before, but they learned now they can do it on their own. Imagine a plumber, if you will, that was working for a plumbing company. Now they've been laid off. Their plumbing company can't do their service, but all of the people on that person's block, their neighbors, their kids, friends, parents, all needed a plumber. And so all of a sudden they became a self-employed business owner, not because it was their lifelong dream, but this opportunity, being at home, utilizing technology, utilizing the resources that they had, they generated a new job, their own job, which is an amazing story. And anecdotally, there are hundreds and thousands and millions of those stories. So COVID put people in a position, some by choice, most not by choice, to expand their opportunities working from home and hopefully to build some type of long-term wealth, a legacy for themselves, building their own business. Giving many people a sense of accomplishment and control that they might not have had working for a bigger business. So I think that pride in self-employment, I think COVID added to that. And whether you're leaning to the left politically or leaning to the right politically or you're right down the middle, no matter who you listen to, what news source you listen to, all of them have one thing in common. And that is that small business generates at least 70% of all the new jobs in this country and accounts for most of the economic recovery since COVID. And so you hear about it on the news, you hear about it in political debates, and you also hear about it in your own neighborhood block party, because that underlying swell of interest and commitment to small business is kind of unique. The small business voice is louder today than it's ever been before. And again, with my own crystal ball, which is kind of blurry most days, with my own crystal ball, I see the growth in self-employment is going to continue.
So I'm curious what somebody that wants to open a business, that intentionally, not because of COVID or circumstances or whatever, but somebody that just intentionally wants to open a business, what should they be thinking about before they take that big step? Like, what are the do's and what are some of the don'ts?
Well, that's a great question. Research, and more research is a great idea. Back to this technology issue, and one of these days, Wendy, I'm telling you, one of these days, this internet thing is going to be really big. I really think it's going to be big one of these days.
Any day now.
But anytime you're looking into a new opportunity, even if you don't even know what that opportunity is, sit down at your computer, open your browser, and do the research. Find other people in your neighborhood that are doing some of the similar things that you do. Now, my first recommendation always is find something that is consistent with your own personal core competencies. For example, my background is in taxation. Your background is with sales and salesology, and you're the queen of the cold call. I would not want to start a business that required that skill set to be successful, because that is not my personal skill set. So find something, if you can, that kind of matches your own personal core competencies. What are the things that you're good at? What are the things that make you happy? Certainly a job's a job. And you hear a lot of people talk about, oh, if I did something I loved every day, then you'll never work a day in your life. All that sounds great. And I support the people who have that luxury. But at the end of the day, usually work is work. But find something that you enjoy because you're good at. Look into the opportunities related to that. Now, if that doesn't even sound attractive, the next step below that, there are thousands and thousands of opportunities out there through franchise organizations, through Chamber of Commerce, through other networking organizations. You can go to the NASE website. We have a thing called the Next Biz Thing, which is basically an online I view it personally as a Yellow Pages ad online. And that, again, shows you how old I am. I think of it as the Yellow Pages. But there are about 200,000 NASE members on Next Biz Thing, all providing services to other members of the NASE in their local communities. And you can see in those lists of businesses services that are being provided in other communities. You can find those same type of services that maybe they're not being provided in your community. So there are resources available. There are commitments. You talk about do's and don'ts. Do certainly your research. Do find something that fits your core competencies, something that you're good at. Don't jump into things with both feet and spend a bunch of money to get things started. Figure out what you'd like to do and try it. Go for a couple of weeks. Find someone else that does that. Hang out with them. Find a mentor in that same industry and follow them around for a couple of months. And then you'll kind of see what the pitfalls are, what the struggles were. Then you can sit down and say, what do I need from an overall business planning model? What do I need to support my family? What do I need to support myself? And can I do that with this business? So before you jump in, before you start buying a lot of money, buying a lot of equipment, sit down and think about what do you need to accomplish? Set some goals. Be specific, be challenging, and always remember, and this is, no matter how long I talk, I always want to go back to this, as a self-employed business owner, it's easy to feel like you're all alone. It's easy to feel like that you don't have someone that can help you. But with organizations like ours, organizations like the Small Business Administration, they sponsor small business development centers in local communities. I'll bet anybody who wants to call me right now that I can find a consultant for you within 20 miles of your home today that is free, sponsored by one of these organizations that can help you with the questions you have at being self-employed. So no matter how difficult you think it is, no matter how frustrated you get, always remember that you have resources. You're never in this all alone. And that's the best piece of advice I could ever give.
Well, I love that. I have to say, when I started my business, and it's been about 25 years at this point, but I kind of thought like, oh, I'm smart. I like to read. I'll be able to figure it all out. And boy, was I wrong. Getting help, like finding somebody that knows stuff that you don't know, and getting help and advice that you need from them, because you don't know what you don't know. And I cannot tell you how many missteps I made along the path.
And that's exactly right. And again, back to the NASE and the way I got started involved with the National Association for the Self-Employed is that very same point. Over the years, the NASE has developed this Ask the Expert section that we talked about earlier in response to member questions. Because, everybody has unique questions, but then a lot of questions are the same. People have to file the same tax returns. The same things are deductible for all types of businesses. Most still have to have contracts. They still have to have some type of legal advice. So having that level of experts available was the reason NASE came up with the Ask the Expert section of the services that we provide to answer those questions. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have those questions. And again, nothing we do at the NASE is proprietary. It's not rocket science. You can go to Google and Google any question that you can ask any expert at the NASE, and you can find lots of information right on the internet. I mean, you can Google anything these days. It's amazing. So it's not proprietary, but people, small business owners, and most people for that matter, in my opinion, want to have someone that knows their name, that knows a little bit about their company, that feel a little bit of confidentiality with when they're discussing their own individual problems. So having someone to go to, someone to have a face, a name that provides a little bit more confidence in the information that you're getting.
We are going to pause now for a word from our sponsor. But when we come back, I'm going to hold Keith's feet to the fire, because I want to know some of the things that small business owners, self-employed people should be thinking about moving forward to grow their business, and also some of the other resources that are available through NASE. So that's when we come back. But now, a word from our sponsor, the Salesology Vault. Just about every guest that I've interviewed on the Salesology Conversations with Sales Leaders podcast has had a free gift for our listeners. So what we've done is we've taken all of those gifts and we put them all together in one place just for you. We call it the Salesology Vault, and it's packed full of free gifts from sales leaders, sales experts, marketing gurus, revenue generation experts. And we add another gift every week. So every Monday, we release a podcast and we add a gift. So you can log in as often as you'd like, and you can download as many gifts as you'd like. It's all free. Go to bit.ly/gift vault, or the link to the Salesology Vault's in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the notes, click on the link, download your gifts, and you'll be glad you did. And we are back with my special guest, Keith Hall, who is the president and CEO of NASE. That's the National Association for the Self-Employed. And so I want to ask you, Keith, because, you keep hearing different things. For a long time this year, they were saying, we're going into a recession. Now they're saying we're probably not going into a recession, but whether we are or we're not, whatever is going on in the economy, what is it that small business owners, the self-employed, should be thinking about moving forward to make sure that their business is sustainable over time, whatever is going on in the economy?
Well, that's a great question. And, historically, and I think you can do another search on economic results or whatever, but historically, in a time of a downward move in the overall U.S. economy, small business typically does better. A little bit of counter-cyclical to the general economy. And part of that is, as we saw as an exaggeration during COVID, because of the issues that big businesses have, more people move towards self-employment, either because they got laid off, big businesses are losing money, so they're changing their focus, changing their operational structure, utilizing technology to eliminate jobs, to save money, blah, 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 blah. But all of those things lead to a better response in downward economic conditions for self-employed. So part of that, you'll see a growth in self-employment. Again, for our personal experience here at the NASE, we had more new members join the NASE during COVID than at any time I can remember. And part of that, again, was because people were at home looking for a way to support themselves and their families, and looking for resources to do that. So, as it relates to how do you prepare for those type of things in the future, I hope we never have to prepare for another pandemic like we had, but in sheltering your small business from potential downturns like that, there's no better piece of advice than make sure you have a good, solid financial plan. Know where your business is headed. If you have one giant customer, for example, let's say you're a graphics designer and you work out of your home and you work just for one single company, then you need to evaluate what happens if you lose that company. You've got a concentration in your customer base there, and you need to be evaluating, hey, what happens if that big business, something happens to that big business, or if they change the way they're doing their internal graphics design. So try to expand where is your downfall for your potential customer base. And I like talking about accounting. I like talking about taxes. I like talking about numbers, but never lose sight of where the success from your business comes from. Almost always, the number one thing that is going to dictate the success of your business is your next customer. And again, accountants and CPAs and economists all talk about cash management and cash flow management and payroll management. It all sounds great. But the first thing you need to be doing every Monday morning when you wake up is, where am I going to get my next customer? Because nothing happens very good until you find one more customer. So have a plan for where you're headed. The thing I do like to talk about, cash management, I love to recommend that small businesses have some number of months in reserve in the form of cash so that their business can stay afloat through some issue. Now, no one expected the length of time COVID was going to impact us. I like having small businesses find a way to save 3 months of your operating capital. So how much does it cost you to run your business? And don't forget, for most self-employed business owner, 3 months of running your business also includes your house payment, your car payments, your kids' daycare. So that's part of running your business. If you can have 90 days of operating capital set aside, then most downturns that we face, most medical issues that we face, when you mess up your knee playing basketball because you're too old to play basketball, that's not a confession. Let's not get into that. But when something like that happens, if you have some level of reserves in place to shelter you through those bumps, then that will provide some confidence and security and a little bit less stress to manage that process. And then the third thing I would say, and make sure you think about this, and most seasoned business owners take this for granted. Most new business owners completely forget about this. And don't forget that as a self-employed business owner, no one out there is withholding money from your earnings to send to the IRS for taxes. Nobody's planning for your tax return. The IRS doesn't send you a bill in advance. So make sure part of your planning process is to recognize that if you are successful, you're going to owe the IRS some money on April 15th. So make sure you plan that process. Most of us, when we had a regular job, a regular W-2 job, the company takes money out of our paycheck and sends it to the IRS for us. So we're kind of ahead of the game. We don't have to think about it. If you're self-employed, particularly if you're new to self-employment, nobody is sending money to the IRS on your behalf. So make sure you have that somewhere in your planning process so that April 15th is not as much of a horrendous day as it potentially can be.
Well, comment on two of the things you said. First of all, I love what you had to say about finding the next customer, since what we here at Salesology do is help small business owners find new customers. And the second thing I want to say is you are so spot on about the setting aside the money for taxes, because when I started my business, I didn't think about that. And then I hired an accountant at the end of the year who said, "Oh, you owe," and I don't remember what the number was, but it was big.
Yeah.
And it was really a horrible experience. So don't do that, anybody. Listen to Keith. Listen to Keith.
Well, and it is amazing. It's like, everyone knows, the old joke is nothing sure but death and taxes. I mean, everyone files a tax return. Everyone that makes money in this country is going to pay taxes. This is the best country in the world. Those taxes go to keep us being the best country in the world. And I believe that in my heart. I don't say that just to be sappy. I believe that in my heart. So that's our responsibility and that's our duty. And I think everyone wants to do the right thing. But if you just don't think about it, you're used to having a job and now you start your own business and oh my gosh, people are paying you. You got a check and you deposit in your bank account. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is great. But remember, when you had a job at a regular company and you make, pick a number, you make $2,000, your check is not $2,000. And that happens to a lot of young people. They go to work and they say, wait, I make $2,000 for this pay period, but my check was only $1,500. What is going on? Well, part of that money is taken out and sent to the government on your behalf, so you don't have to worry about it. So I love that example, and this can be as easy as you can make it as a new self-employed person. Back to our graphics designer example. So you have a new client and you do a job and they love it, and you've helped them with their annual report, and you send them a bill and they send you a check for $2,000. This is awesome. This is America. This is great. Take that $2,000, put it in your bank account, immediately take $500 of it. 25% is a round number. It's an estimate. It's a guess. Take $500, open a separate savings account, put the $500 in the savings account, and forget it. Let it go. Even you can go online and name the account IRS or Uncle Sam's money. Name it whatever you want to name it. You don't have to send it to them necessarily, but keep it in the account. When you do get to April 15th and it's time to do all those funky tax papers, you'll have the money there if you're setting aside some of each check that you get for Uncle Sam. You'll be so happy that you did that.
Amazing. Wonderful advice. Thank you. 25 years too late for me, but thank you. And so where can people, if people want to find out more about NASE, if people want to connect with you, what's the best place for them to do that, Keith?
The best place to find us is right on your computer, right where you find everything else. Our website, nase.org. We talked about this, Ask the Experts. We've learned a long time ago that the small business owner doesn't want to call you. They don't necessarily want to get on a Zoom call. They want to be able to communicate with you online in real time. So go to nase.org. You can talk to me. You can talk to our attorneys. You can talk to our real estate types, IT types, marketing types, anybody that you need to talk to. That's what we do. The number one thing we do every day is answer questions to small business members. And again, back to being sappy, I'm serious about this. Virtually every day of my life since 1995 or so, the first thing I do every day, I get to the office, I turn on my computer, I call up my little dashboard, and I answer questions from small business owners every day. It's the favorite thing we do. It's the favorite thing I do. It's the way we make a difference. It's amazing. So that's the best way to get in touch with us, and it's the best way to stay in touch with us.
Very cool. And so we will be posting, if you didn't have a chance to jot down that website, we will be posting the link to the NASE website in the show notes. So as soon as you finish listening to this podcast, go to the show notes, click on the link. And you have been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, with my very special guest, Keith Hall, who is the president and CEO of the National Association for the Self-Employed, NASE. And if you found value in listening to today's podcast, then please think about one business owner, one entrepreneur, one sales leader that you know that you think might also find value in listening to this podcast, and please do share the link with them. And until we meet again, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, really large bills.
You've been listening to Salesology, Conversations with Sales Leaders, the art of faster, easier, more profitable sales. Be sure to follow so that you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review and be sure to share it with your friends. Tune in every week for more exciting insights and wisdom on transforming sales. And until next time, visualize yourself surrounded by cash, very large bills.